There are many schools of thought on straight edge, like surrealism or the Communist Party or even Buddhism. Any ideology that's lasted longer than 5 years.
Many people know the big three rules of the straight edge movement. Don't drink, don't smoke, don't do drugs. But simply not drinking, smoking, and doing drugs does not make you straight edge the same way that loving thy neighbor does not make you a Christian.
Hello, my name is Davey Havoc.
Hi, I'm Haley.
This is CM Punk.
My name is Matthew Hastings.
What's up? My name is Toby Morris.
I was like 14 or 15, and a lot of people say like, oh, you can't be straight edge until you're 21, but I firmly disagree like with that. And because like when you're in high school or when you're in middle school, there's like so many of your friends are just getting into all those like drugs and alcohol and everything else, and that's when like the temptations and the peer pressure is like the hardest. And one of my friends, my best friend actually at the time, like he did a lot of drugs and he like overdosed, and he almost died actually. Like I had to like sit with him in the hospital and stuff, and like that paired with my like stuff in my family and like my father's past and stuff like that, I kind of made up my mind that I didn't want to have anything to do with that at all, and that it kind of went hand in hand with my faith and what I believed in as a Christian.
I was like 12 or 13, and if my brothers were watching me, there would be parties at the house. My brothers would be smoking and drinking around me, and seeing my brothers, the way they acted when they were high or drunk, really scared me. The one cool thing that they did for me is they turned me on to this punk rock music and skateboarding. I sort of thank them to this day for scaring me straight. When I got into middle school, there was a scene there. There was a lot of kids knew about punk rock and skateboarding. So I met a couple kids who understood where I was coming from. But then there was also a bunch of other kids and there were other little cliques, who always looked at me like, this guy's a weirdo, this guy's a crazy guy. I would go there with my head shaved or like checkered pants on, a black flag shirt. But I honestly, like, it's so strange because people ask me that all the time, like, did you feel peer pressure? Did you feel that? I did in a sense, but then I started realizing that, like, if the people are telling you to do something you don't want to do, they're not your real friends.
So when straight edge hit here in '89 and started to come into its own through bands and that sense of tribalism that grew around it with the music as the nucleus of it, it was seen as the revolt and the rebellion that it was. And here it is all these years later, and it's been one band after another, keeping that torch burning and handing it down to the next generation, keeping it alive.
Straight edge until the day I die. Cold truth. My blood flows cold and pure. I refuse to be victimized. Cold truth. See the intoxins who leap from victim to others as a dedic escape. To tranquilize, to energize, to check and tantalize.
I became part of the straight edge movement because prior to actually having heard of the straight edge movement, I had a great distaste for drug use, for the drug culture. I was a part of the alternative music scene. I was a part of the punk rock and the hardcore scene. What was integral to that scene was a self-abuse that seemed to go hand in hand with the aggression of the music. And I never really understood why it had to be so, and I never saw the importance of it and could only see the detriment of it. At the same time, I felt that what drew me to the alternative scenes, whether they were punk rock or hardcore or death rock or any of the alternative scenes that really converged together at the time of their inception many years ago, I felt what drew me to them was the individuality and the forward thinking, and really there was a separatism to it that I found shelter in, away from the mainstream. And to me, there was nothing more mainstream than drug use. In America, it is today and has always been a mandatory means of recreation to consume drugs. It's been pushed at you from a very early age. When I saw people on drugs and the way that they acted and the way that they treated each other, I found it really sad and disgusting, if not disappointing. at best, and I never wanted to be like that, and I never wanted to be like them in that way or any other way. And so when I discovered the straight edge movement, which was a movement that came out of hardcore scene, which was a group of people that shared my same artistic affinities as well as my beliefs on drug use, I was elated, and I said, oh, that's what I am. I am straight edge.
Understand a lot of the fun to what partying was. So, and I just never did it. I didn't understand waking up next to somebody you don't remember going to bed with. I didn't understand, you know, getting blackout drunk and not remembering the good times you had with your buddies. And I feel so strongly about it that I've just always been this way. It just made sense, you know. And I never had identified with anything. I was about 17 years old. I got drug-free, tattooed on my knuckles, you know, because this is a commitment. This is how serious I am about this. And something I've never been is preaching. I don't preach to other people because to me, a lot of the times you tell kids what not to do, and they're going to go ahead and do it. You know, I tell people to keep an open mind and accept everybody, because even though I'm not a religious person, there's a lot of religious people that turn me off to religion. I have religious friends, but it's just like everything in life. I think there's good and there's bad. I'm not a hardliner. I don't push it on anybody else. I accept people for who they are.
I don't claim straight edge, but to me, it's an amazing, very respectable lifestyle. My thing is, I just don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't need to do drugs. I don't need to party because I don't know. I guess it's never really tempted me, you know. But at the same time, I will say this, I started to drink when I was younger because I thought it would help my voice. And then I kind of leaned on it because I thought once I started, you know, having like a shot of this or something to help my throat, I thought that maybe it sounded cool to people that I was around, because I was like 16 years old and on tour with people that were in their 30s, and kind of feeling like maybe it would help me fit in, even though it wasn't something that I wanted to do or that I enjoyed doing. And I remember one night we were celebrating our first sold-out show in London, and some guy brought us a bottle of champagne, and I thought, okay, well, this is like what you do. You know, you're grown up, you celebrate, you have champagne. So I took a sip, like straight out of the bottle. I thought I was being so cool. And I remember spitting it out because I thought it was so gross. And that was in 2007, and that was the night that I decided I would never take another sip of an alcoholic drink if it wasn't something that I was making the choice for myself to do. So.
We are the last of a dying breed, and these words become our only release. Straight edge is my weapon of choice. No one will silence my voice.